like if you just make it a big culture war, you don't think about the shortcomings that both parties have had when it comes to wage gaps, wage inequality, race inequality, issues of equity in general throughout multiple communities of color and minorities, right? You don't think about foreign policy issues. So like if we shift the focus from actual policy to identity politics and gender politics and what bathroom one person can use as opposed to another, if you focus on that, we can do our dirt over here, and no one really focuses on the ugly stuff here. We just like, oh, well, I believe in guns and I believe in no guns. And it just becomes one culture. It just becomes cultural volleyball, and none of the problems actually get fixed. And I think that both sides feed into it. Like, I think both sides feed into it. And I think that's the case. This election, more than any election, has just clarified that for me. Like, it's not about, Trump's tax plan. I mean, for some people it is. Like, apparently Lil Wayne thinks Biden's tax plan is whatever, right? But he's an idiot, so we're not even going to touch that. But I mean, if you're rich, of course, like a tax plan you might feel differently about a Biden tax plan as opposed to a Trump tax plan, right? But I'm talking about everybody in the margins, everybody in the middle, basically everybody we know and people they know, and so on and so forth. Like, I just think it's a cultural issue. Like, I think it's literally cultural civil war. It's tribalism. It's like, if you don't think the way I think, if you don't see the world the way I see the world, then you're my enemy. And I feel like I just want people to wake up and see that politicians are doing this shit on purpose. They're doing this because, again, they want us to focus on these cultural issues instead of actually focusing on the real stuff that actually affects our lives on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I agree. And I say this a lot too, especially in 2016. 2020, I'm not really sure if this holds true, but I think in 2016, I know a lot of white men who voted for Trump, who might have voted for Obama twice or just kind of apolitical or whatever. Mm-hmm. And to me, I don't think they're racist. I think it's very dangerous when you call all Trump supporters racist. I think it's a little different in 2020. Don't get me wrong, because to me, it's 4 years of seeing this shit. I'm not saying everybody is, but I'm saying that you have a little less rope with me in 2020. Yeah. In 2016, I think a lot of people, especially a lot of white men, they didn't feel like it was okay to be white. And Trump made them feel like it was okay to be white. You have Black Lives Matter movements. You have things like that. And here comes Trump, and he makes you feel comfortable. He makes you feel like you're not.
But in a way, isn't it that? Even in a way, isn't that racism?
It's not so much. It can be, but it's not the type of racism that I think can't be fixed. It's not
overt racism.
It's something that can be fixed with education. That's something that can be fixed with recognizing the privileges that you have. That can be fixed with conversation that I can have with you on a level where it's like, all right, we can sit down and talk about this. Like, with a full blown racist, I can't sit down with you and meet eye to eye because we live on different universes. But someone like that, I can sit them down and have a conversation about privilege or have a conversation about why they feel uncomfortable. And I think a lot of white people in this country, they feel uncomfortable with movements like Black Lives Matter, with movements like defund the police or reform the police. And voting Republican or voting for someone like Trump, they might not like him, but it's comforting because nothing is going to change in their world. They're not interested in justice. They're not interested in any of that. They just want peace and they just want order. So they vote for that. And I think we really have to start having, I wouldn't say different conversations with our white friends, because I don't think the burden should be on us to actually try to convert people's minds to, hey, maybe don't vote for racist politicians. But I have noticed that there is a very easy pipeline to the alt-right with especially white men when you have conversations with them and you kind of make them feel bad for being white when we're talking about, white people voted for Trump. Fuck white people. When you generalize everybody like that, you have people who aren't racist. They hear that and it kind of turns them off from whatever you're trying to sell them. They may not be racist. They may not hate black people. They have black friends. But when you are touting white people this, white people that, it just tends to kind of, you start having gripes with that side for even if you believe in everything they believe in. And then you start listening to the news from other people who are sick of the same thing, but they might be a little further right than you. And you just go further and further right. And I feel like that's what has happened to a lot of white men. Personally.
I get that. That. And I agree with you. And I think that part of the problem that I'm not going to say the left, but just liberals in general have had is that painting everybody with this broad brush of, if you voted for Donald Trump, you're a racist. Absolutely not. Like,
no.
The mainstream media has yet to explain to me how millions of people who voted for Barack Hussein Obama, not just in 2008, but 2012, then convert in 2016 to vote for Donald Trump. Like that doesn't square with me. Hey, they're racist, but they voted for Obama in 2008.
Yeah, it's not racist.
It's like, you know what I mean? That being said, they may not be racist, but racism wasn't a disqualifier.
Correct.
It wasn't something. And I feel like, to me, part of like not having empathy for issues that are going on in communities of color, minorities, etc., like in a way, like the new racism is acting like racism doesn't exist.
Yes.
Or acting like you can't even be empathetic towards other communities that are suffering. Like that, to me, in that of itself, is a problem. And it may not be. See, there's different, because when you bring up racism, like everybody thinks racism is like, oh, I wear a white hood and I go to Klan rallies at Wednesdays at 9:00 on my local bingo hall. Like, no, that's not the racism that we're talking. I mean, obviously that's extreme. That's an extreme version of it.
Right.
But that's not what we're talking about. There's subtle, there's overt racism. There's kind of, there's liberal racism. Even people that are liberals that are champion liberal causes.
Yep.
Can be racist. Watch Get Out if you don't know what we're talking about.
Vote for Obama's wife.
Right? Like, so like, I feel like painting everybody with a broad brush, while yes, is a problem, you also, like, I feel like this is a challenge to all of those folks in the middle that like don't like Donald Trump, but didn't have like, the problem I have with some folks is they feel like when you vote for a candidate, you don't own all of the aspects of that candidate, right?
Right.
Like when you vote for a candidate. Yeah. Right, because like I've had this conversation with Trump voters. Oh, I'm not a racist. I can't stand Trump. I think the things he says is abhorrent, but I think he's gonna just bring a jolt to Washington. And I was like, okay, well, I can see the reasoning, and then I bring up the whole the crazy things that he has said, and it's like, well, I'm not voting for that. No, when you vote for a candidate, it's like you're endorsing that part of the rhetoric. Like you can't ignore parts of the rhetoric that fit what you want to hear, and then other parts are like, oh, no, that doesn't apply to me. Like it doesn't work that way. We all want it to work that way, but unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. It's like if Obama, like you and I both voted for Obama in 2008 and 2012. So like if Obama would have came out here and it's like, hey, when I get in office, I'm gonna kill whitey. Like as Obama supporters, we own that.
Exactly.
Like, we own the rhetoric. You know what I'm saying? So like, I just feel like people haven't squared that aspect of that. No, I don't think that all Trump supporters are racist. Absolutely not. I really believe a large, and these are the folks when they say you have to talk to the other side. This is the folks that think that Joe Biden is like literally having dinner, that like Joe Biden literally went to high school with Che Guevara and, Fidel Castro. Like those folks you can't have a conversation with because we're like literally not on the same wavelength. The folks that you have to have a conversation with are the folks that are saying, I'm a conservative and I'm tired of the system. I'm tired of the system that literally has done nothing for me, that has forgotten the folks in rural America that don't have health care, they're seeing their wages diminish by the day. Folks that live in Youngstown, Ohio, that used to work at a GM factory, that GM has shipped all their jobs to overseas. And both parties, by the way, parties have had a hand in that. And they say, you know what? I'm tired of the rhetoric. Both parties are the same. And here comes this guy. I get it. He's a piece of shit. He's a shitbag. He's a racist. But you know what? This is my FU to the system. I'm going to vote this guy. And maybe he's an agent of chaos. I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm just saying that this is what they may think. I can't say they're wrong for that. Now, that's like saying I want to see the system change, so I'm just going to bomb a building. Obviously, bombing a building is the wrong recourse, right? Yeah. But you can still sympathize with the notion that I want to see the system change.
I'm just not as optimistic as you are that there are that many of those people who exist who aren't racist or who do not have abhorrent point of views. Now, I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm not saying they're not out there. I do think that the Democratic Party has left a lot of people, especially in that Rust Belt, to fend for themselves, and they have to own that. And, there's a big reason why the Democratic Party.
How much of the percentage do you think it is? Like, so let's just say for the sake of this discussion, 71 million, right? That voted for Donald Trump.
We're talking about the people who voted for Trump, 71 million.
Right. Okay. How much of that 71 million do you think are people that just have abhorrent views? They're just awful people that you'll never reach anyway.
At least half. At least. So
Half?
here's the thing. I'm going to give you the portion of people who I think don't have them. I think you have people who are like born again Christians, always grew up Republican, voted Republican, genuinely do charity for, like, that's what they do. And they see something like abortion and they're like, I can't vote. Like, I'm going to vote Republican despite everything Trump says because my Christian values, like, maybe I still don't believe in gay marriage. They just don't line up with what I believe in. I think there's that.
That goes to the cultural war part.
It does go to the cultural part, but I don't think they're horrible people.
No, they're not horrible people. No, I get that.
And then I think you have the people you just mentioned. The problem is that even amongst those people, they are still incredibly misinformed on everything. They are still incredibly delusional on what socialism is. They are still incredibly on another planet when it comes to what is going on in this country as far as Trump's policies, the coronavirus, wearing a mask. Like, they are literally, despite being good people, on another planet when it comes to these type of things. And I think that's what's frustrating to me. It's because even though I think you might be good people, and even though I think a lot of you might be, you still are reaping in all of this news that is demeaning, that is hurtful, that is hateful towards the other side. You're still taking it in, and you're still believing things that are completely false and delusional. I mean, you have QAnon supporters. You have people who think Democrats are starting a sex ring. Like, it's a lot of people. Like, This is a lot of people, man. This is not just like a fringe 1 to 2% of the Republican base. A lot of the Republican base just does not believe anything they hear from anything outside of Fox News and now OAN. They just don't. There is no reality coming from the Republican Party that I can see. I have yet to have a debate with a conservative in the past, even during the Obama years, for the past 6 to 8 years, about anything substantially relevant or anything substantially factual in the news. Every time I have a conversation with a conservative, and I even try to meet them halfway and give them ground, they have no idea what is going on with anything because all they hear is stuff coming from Fox. All they hear is stuff coming from Breitbart. So even though I think these people can be good people, I think they still live on another planet, period.
I can't argue. I mean, I feel you, bro. I totally feel you. And look, I'm not sitting here trying to defend folks because I'm not. Like, there is a huge part of Trump's base that I have I have no need to have a conversation with. Like, all that unity talk, it just goes out the window. Like, there's certain folks that I will never have a conversation with. If I can't sit down and unify with you, if you don't believe that people that look like me should have basic principles of human rights. Like, we don't deserve to live. We don't deserve to have a living wage. We don't deserve to have our lives matter. Like, when in the eyes of the law and in the justice system, like, if we can't see eye to eye on that, then we have no conversation to have. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can have a disagreement on trickle-down economics. We can have a disagreement on foreign policy. We can have a disagreement on Hillary's emails. We can have a disagreement on, whether we think Joe Biden's a socialist or he isn't. But whether Black people's lives should matter, that's not a disagreement. That's not a frame of thought.
But how many out of the 71 million are all lives matter people, blue lives matter people who don't?
A lot of them. A lot of them. A lot of them are.
I'm going on a limb and saying at least 80. How many Republicans?
You may be right. You may be right.
Like, come on. Like, and that's the thing where it's just like, I'm sick of having to pretend that, like, we are on the same planet when it comes to these type of things. I'm sick of having the burden placed on liberals where it's like, we have to unify as a country, so let's meet in the middle. It's like, no, I'm not meeting in the middle with you. You have to come to me. You have to come to my planet, because right now you're not in reality with anything, especially morally. You may be a Christian. You may be a nice person to all the white families you have around you. But when it comes to issues like the LGBT issues and Black Lives Matter and children at the border, you are voting against everything that humanity stands for. I'm not meeting halfway with you. You have to come to me. You have to come to my planet before I even have a discussion with you. And I feel like out of the 71 million people who voted for Trump, that is a huge chunk of it. A huge chunk.
Absolutely. I'm not even trying to debate you. Because partially, I agree with you. Yeah. I guess I don't get caught up in the culture war stuff because I don't feel like we're ever going to be united when it comes to culture. Like, we're just not. Never, right? But I feel like with politics, you have to meet people at their conditions, right? So, like, we're much more alike than we're different. right? Like, I think if you sit down with this, even if you sat down with this abhorrent, just go with me for my scenario for a second, this abhorrent, racist piece of shit person, right? That believes that, you know, all lives matter and that kids in cages isn't a big deal. Even if you sat down with them and I said, okay, so what has the Republican Party done for you? Have they improved your community in any way? Have they improved your roads, your schools, your bridges, anything? No. When you go to the doctor, you have to pay an insane amount just to get seen, just for a basic checkup. You have to pay an insane amount. Yeah.
Obama.
Okay. Well, here's
Obama.
Okay, but here's like, right. But I'm just saying, like, here is I totally agree with you on all of that, right? Here's where we come together, right? I believe that all American people should have health care. I believe that your kids should go to college for free, a state college for free. I believe that you have basic principles. Like, I believe in a new Bill of Rights, and you point to them what a new Bill of Rights is. And I guarantee you, some of those folks, not all of them, I will admit, you have a conversation with 4 folks, maybe 1 will see the light of day. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like we have to get away from this culture shit, because this culture shit is what's tearing us apart, right? Like, we're so fixated on, you know, all lives matter, Black lives matter, all lives matter, Black lives matter. And in the middle, we don't have healthcare. You know, wage disparities are increasing. You know, the wealth gap is still crazy. Like, all of these things are still going on that I feel like if most people got away from the culture stuff and actually paid attention what the fuck is going on, then we would actually see, like, yo, all of these trivial arguments that we're having, and I don't want to say trivial because I don't think they're trivial. They're not. But I think that when it comes to, like, the bigger picture, all of these things that we're having a discussion that we're focusing on is not important. This is what is important. The fact that I can't go to a doctor's office and freaking get a flu shot without getting a $200 bill. You know what I'm saying? Like, the fact that my son or my daughter is going to get out of college at 21, 22 with 70, 80K in debt. That's the problem. You know, whether I believe in Allah or, you know, Jesus or whatever, like, that's another conversation for another day. And again, I'm not trying to make these issues like minimal. I'm not. But what I'm saying is, like, I feel like politicians have won because they've made the focus on culture and not on the actual bread and butter issues that I think if most people actually sat down and paid attention to, they would see, like, yo, yeah, why is that? Like, why is it that Medicare for all is this impossible fairy tale thing that we just make it out to be?
But even what you're saying is, I get what you're saying, and I think you're 100% correct. But the problem I have is that we are giving that message. You have AOCs and Elon Omars and this new progressive.
But how many of those folks get the mainstream attention? They don't. Like, AOC had a 60-second speaking slot at the DNC.
I understand
for the liberals like you, Josh, who think that, oh, we'll be able to push Joe Biden in a freaking pandemic, in a Democratic part, like AOC, like Cory Bush, Jamal Bowman, they didn't even get speaking slots. They didn't even get but I have to hear this goof, John Kasich, lecture me and lecture people like me don't go far to the left.
In a way, though, you kind of just said what John Kasich said. We have to talk to Republicans. We have to not cater to them, but we have to have these conversations and see what they think about things. That's what you kind of said. Now, I'm not saying that you said it as I don't think what he said was extreme, and I don't even think what he said was like crazy, but this idea that we as a party have to reach on the other side of the aisle and compromise or have these conversations.
No, I'm not saying compromise on your beliefs, and I'm not saying, like, I agree with you. Like, me as a man of color, I'm not compromising on the way I look. I'm not compromising on that shit.
Right.
I'm not compromising on the way my kids look. I'm not like, if you feel uncomfortable with that shit, that's your personal thing that you got to deal with. I don't care about that. But the folks that don't necessarily, and again, whatever number you want to use, half, 50, 65%, whatever, right? I'm not saying you're going to, like, I am convinced that there is a population of that 74 million that you're never going to reach. Maybe out of the 71 million, 60 million, you're never going to reach. That could be the case. Fuck those 60 million people. I don't care about them. I'm talking about the 11 million that are on the outside of that cusp that you could have a conversation with, that you could sit down and, like, say, hey, yo, I don't think you're a racist. I think you're misguided.
Right.
I don't think you're a racist. I don't think you're an ill-meaning person. I think you're misguided. I think you've watched too much Fox News.
Right.
Here's Rising. Here's Rational National. Here's all of these progressive outlets. And, you know, hey, listen to a Cornel West speech.
Right.
Listen to this, you know, listen to this or listen to that. And maybe out of that 11 million people, maybe 2 million you can get to convert. That's what I'm saying about talking. Of course, that's 60 million. Let's say it's 60 million out of that 71 that you'll never reach. Right. That are a bunch of racist buffoons. Fuck them. I don't care about them.
But it's not even just racism. It's the misinformation. Because I don't want people thinking who are listening to this thinking that I'm calling everyone who votes Republican racist or even most Republicans racist.
No.
I think a lot of it has to do with the misinformation that they're getting and them literally, like I keep saying this, living on another planet than us. Like that's what it feels like. And yes, we might be able to have a conversation with some of these people, but if I start having a conversation about government-run healthcare, all of a sudden, oh, socialism? No, I'm not.
Because that's what they've been conditioned to think. Because
I don't know how to decondition that.
Since they've been in the third grade, they've been told socialism is bad. If you open every history book in America, they'll tell you socialism is bad. Fidel Castro is the worst human being on earth. And like all of these things that we know are not true because we actually did research for ourselves. And we actually said, well, what about socialism is bad? Of course. Is there elements of socialism that can lead to communism and can lead to authoritarianism? Of course. Yes. Just like every ideology has extremism.
Exactly. Capitalism and fascism. Literally as we for the past 4 years.
Thank you. You took the words out of my mouth. Like, of course, every political ideology can have extremism to it. Yep. Absolutely. But the core concept, like, and then explain to people like the things, the social programs that you enjoy, they're socialism.
Yes.
Period. Student loans is socialism.
Medicare
is socialism.
Social Security.
The Department of Veteran Affairs is socialism.
Hey, police officers, how you get paid?
Socialism. And but it's like, and maybe this even goes against what I started the show with, saying that like a lot of people can inform themselves, or a lot of people inform. Like maybe, you know what? I take it back because there are a lot of people that just don't know this shit. They don't know it, bro, because they've lived in the American bubble for so long, where they've gone to school in America. They've taken the same bullshit US 1 and US 2 classes in high school, and they think that that's it. And CNN tells them socialism is bad. Ooh, Fidel Castro bad, Che Guevara bad, you know, and that's it. And that's how they frame. And I don't think it's our responsibility to educate, but I think you give people the tools and say, no, I think you may want to look at that differently, or, hey, there's a different way of looking at that. And then let them go from there. Like, I just feel like it's just because people have just been so conditioned, because this is the American propaganda that has been always thrown out there, bro. And we could have been victims of that. If we ourselves didn't have what makes us us, to go out and learn and consume and get and expand our mindsets to like, hey, why isn't that every single person of the 330 million Americans that are living in this country, you know what I'm saying, have healthcare, and like find out why isn't that the case, and like actually learn these things. And we expanded our thought that, or else we could have been the same. We could have been like the same one of these motherfuckers that are like, oh, well, socialism's bad. My social studies teacher said socialism was bad, so socialism is bad. CNN says socialism is bad, and like that's it. And I'm not saying it's a good excuse, by the way. I'm not.
And just to bring it back to like, it's not like this is 2016. It's like, for instance, I give so much more rope to someone who voted for Trump in 2016 because it was such a wild card, right? Like it was obvious to you and I, someone who were watching the campaign trail, like he's saying racist shit, he's saying homophobic shit, he's basically breaking every rule in politics and getting away with it, spewing hate stuff. But it's new, right? But after 4 years of, you mishandle a pandemic, there's no healthcare replacement, like literally all the promises that he promised, nothing happened.
How's that wall going, by the way?
The wall, nothing has changed for you. These people who have economic grievances, nothing's changed for them. These same people
But can't you make the same? Can't you ask the same question to the people that vote for these black people that vote for Democratic Party consistently?
You absolutely can, but they're not the incumbent right now. You welcomed in a president who said he was going to fix certain things, and he hasn't done a damn thing. Manufacturing jobs are down. We're in the middle of a pandemic that we are the only country who is mishandling it to this freaking point. We haven't even stopped the first wave. technically, there hasn't even been a second wave because we even have stopped the first wave. This man spews hatred every single day through the media, through Twitter. You see that for 4 years. It is a lot harder for me to empathize and try to understand somebody who still, after 4 years, goes to a voting booth and says, I want 4 more years of that. And it also makes me mad because growing up, I mean, obviously I wasn't into politics at the age of 12, 13, 14, but I always knew that I was pretty much different than like conservative friends growing up. I knew I was a little more liberal. I didn't know what liberal meant, but I knew that, hey, look, my views on gay marriage is always very liberal because I had an older brother who was gay growing up. I always knew that black people were disproportionately affected by the police and colored people as well, because I had an aunt who had her ass kicked by the NYPD. I have a cousin who has his ass kicked by NYPD. I have racially been discriminated. Like, so these things were in my life. I know these things. But I also grew up trying to tell my conservative friends this. And I just think I'm so sick of conservative hindsight because I know 10 to 20 years down the road from today, I'm going to be talking to some of my conservative friends who live right around me. And they're going to be like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have talked. Yeah, probably shouldn't have voted for Donald Trump. Meanwhile, not having to deal with any of the consequences that came for voting for him in 2016 or 2020. A lot of my LGBTQ friends scared for their effing lives. Women, same exact thing. Black people feeling more uncomfortable. And you come here and you casually, retroactively apologize for voting for him. It's really insulting to even
absolutely
that's going to happen, because I know it's going to happen because it happened for the LGBTQ community during the gay marriage. It happened this year during the BLM marches. Had a lot of conservatives say, I was wrong about that. And I know for a fact 10 years down the road, I'm gonna have a lot of my conservative friends saying, yeah, I probably should have voted for Trump. oh well. And that hindsight, the apathy and just the kind of like nonchalant privilege of it is what bothers me. That's what bothers me. I'm not expecting everyone.
I feel you, bro.
I'm not expecting everyone who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 to be like praying, like, "Oh, please forgive me." I'm not saying that. A lot of people changed their votes in 2020, and a lot of people recognize they made a mistake literally the month after they made their vote. They just couldn't do anything about it because you have to wait 4 years to do it. But the 2020 voter is a lot different than me because you watched 4 years of this, and I know retroactively, if you were not racist, if you really believe in equal rights, if you really believe in equality and what the betterment of the world should be, and you're not a conspiracy theorist, 10 years from now, you're going to come to me, you're going to say, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. And you're going to expect me to be cool with that. And I'm not cool with it. I'm just not.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I agree with you. I absolutely think you're right. And again, I want to again reiterate, right? I am not saying again.
Yeah, I know you're not. I know you're not.
I know you're not. But somebody's going to listen to this to this podcast on either side of the aisle, right? And they're going to say, "Oh, you cooning for Trump?" No, I'm not. I can't stand the guy. I think he's a fucking piece of shit, right? Personally, like I'm drinking wine in part because I'm just ecstatic that he's fucking gone. That's not the point, right? And I get it. Out of the 70, and you may be right, out of the 71 million, maybe 68 million are pieces of shit. There's a 3 million that we might reach if we just, and as a, and it's like, I feel like you can't write those people off, right? Like, I feel like you have to meet those people. And the way you meet those people, you don't meet them from a culture war perspective. You don't, because you're never going to get them to agree on that.
But you're never going to get them to agree on certain things unless you change their mind on culture. They're never going to vote Democratic if we have progressive leaders, chanting Black Lives Matter, and we have people trying to push LGBTQ rights and trans rights. They're never going to flip to our side, period. At some point, we do have to change their mind on some culture issues.
Some, but I feel like the more winnable battle is that you get them to see, like, hey, all this cultural shit, like, you may not like me. Like, for instance, person A is gay and person B is a conservative. Yeah. You may not like person A because he's gay, but guess what? Person A doesn't have healthcare, just like person B doesn't have healthcare.
Right.
Person A may have somebody in a situation where they can't afford. Maybe his aunt has diabetes and they can't afford insulin. Oh, person B, yeah, I have somebody like that. And guess what? You find common ground there. You're never going to find common ground on his cultural identity and your cultural identity. You may not. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. But at least you get people to understand, like, yo, our conditions are the same. Like, we have the same issues.
I think people already understand that, though.
I don't think they do. That's where we differ. Like, I don't think we do. I don't think we do. I just feel like people that are just in that bubble, they don't, because I've had conversations with folks and I've broken it down for them and they've like, oh, I never actually thought of it like that. Like, you don't think
most people, like, listen, most people can't afford healthcare. They just can't, especially if it's not tied to your employer.
I don't think people think in those terms, bro. I just think that identity politics has become such a daily thing in our lives every day, right?
It is.
That I think that people are just so fixated on that. And again, it's not, I think it's on purpose. It's not by happenstance. Like, I think this was a concerted effort, right? Because it's easy to divide and conquer by just saying, hey, focus on these little, not little as far as a level of importance, but these little things that don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But hey, let's not fixate on that, but let's not worry on that. Like, NAFTA screwed both conservatives and liberals.
Yes.
We could agree to that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I had a conversation with a guy. I was like, no matter what we see the world as from a cultural and political perspective, we both can agree that the Iraq war was a disaster, right?
Correct.
That a lot of fucking people died in that war that didn't have to.
Correct.
Right? And both parties have blood on their hands, right?
Yes. One more than other.
But at the end of the day, the 46th president voted for that war.
Facts.
So we can agree on that, right? That's common ground. We may not agree that a transgender man can go to a girl's bathroom. I don't care. Go to whatever bathroom you want to go to. I don't give a shit. You know what I care about? I want 330 million Americans to have health care. That's what I care about. Like all this cultural identity shit means nothing to me. Like, I don't care. Like, last night, like, Kamala Harris being the first, that's cool and all. That's great. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care if you're the first Indian, Asian, blue, white. I don't care. What are you going to do to improve the conditions of me and my people? What are you doing for me? I don't care. Yeah. And that's great. Kamala, in 4 years or in 8 years, no one's going to care that Kamala Harris was the first female vice president. You know what they're going to care about? Did she deliver on health care? Did she deliver on student loan forgiveness? Did she and her president start a stupid conflict in the Middle East? That's what's going to be important. It's not going to be important what bathroom person A and person B went to. It's not going to matter. And that's what I just get so sickened by culture war shit, because I feel like it's just disgusting, and it's made there to actually focus on these issues of culture that we're never going to find perfect solutions to, instead of actually focusing on the real issues that impact Americans like me, you, our dads, grandmas, whatever, every day.
I agree, but I do believe that even, and I may be repeating myself here, but even if we get them to come around to like, hey, listen, everyone should have healthcare, right? Check. We should stop the wars overseas. Check, right? I still think that the deal breaker is that culture where I can't see someone who grows up in a Republican community where Democrats are evil. Like, literally, they think Democrats are literally Satan. Like, there are people who think Democrats are literally evil. Mm-hmm. Evil. I can't see them just kind of flipping over and voting Democrat when, the culture aspect doesn't line up. I mean, Obama instituted something that they thought was socialized. He tried to give people health care, and everyone flipped out as if he was like Hitler.
Because how much of that was propaganda, though, Josh?
I know it was propaganda. I understand that it was propaganda, but I think people still knew it was propaganda. Do you get what I'm saying?
See, this is where we differ. I feel like
I don't have as much faith as you do when it comes to those type of people, because I feel like a lot of people just look at Democrat bad. There's no way that this could possibly
Democrat bad. They just look at a D and an R and a color associated.
Or even if I want healthcare, but at the end of the day, they're not going to vote for the party that's pushing Black Lives Matter. They're not going to vote for the party that's pushing things culture that they don't agree with. So I do agree with you that, like, hey, it should be. Listen, we all should have healthcare. Listen, we should stop the wars over. It should be that 1,000%, and we should not. Identity politics is very annoying. I agree with you on that, but I don't think those people are movable as long as this culture divide exists. And there's always going to be a culture war because there is a cultural divide, period. It's going to be part of our politics forever. Whether we play the game or not. Whether we play the game or not, it's always going to be there.
It's always going to be there. I feel like when when our politics and our brand of thinking is going to ultimately win is when we don't focus on that shit. When we don't focus on that shit and we focus on the real issues that affect red America, just like it affects blue America, I think that's when we ultimately win. Like again, and maybe I'm just an idiot and a buffoon that thinks it has this optimistic view of this. Like maybe I am. You know what I'm saying?
You're not.
Maybe.
Because I think my whole life, at least, and listen, I'm only 33 years old, so obviously this is not the whole history of the country.
Same.
My whole life, we as liberals have won every single culture war that I've seen throughout my life. Every single one of them. We consistently evolve this country very slowly. Christians who didn't believe in gay marriage now believe in gay marriage. Conservatives who didn't understand Black Lives Matter, they may not support defund the police and they might be taking it too far, but they at least understand why the hell we say it now. Like slowly but surely, I think liberals and progressive thought eventually wins out. It just takes some time. So maybe to your point, focusing on just like the issues will take care of a lot of it, and the culture part will take care of it over itself with time. That's something. And
again, to wrap this
I do think the culture part is important. That's what
and I'm not saying you're wrong. I feel like you're absolutely spot on. Like it is definitely a point of contingence. But I feel like when we ultimately win is when we say, okay, because again, with the culture war, we're never going to win that battle. I mean, in a lot of ways,
we won this year.
Win. Well, and not in that. That's not what I mean. I feel like if a person doesn't like Black people, right? You're never going to win that battle.
You mean like conversion, the conversion battle.
Conversion. Like, and I'm not in the business of conversion. Like, if you don't like Black people, fucking tough. Like, I'm not in the business of converting you. Well, here's some of the nice Black folks. Like, no. Like, if you don't like me for the color of my skin, not for the context of who I am as a person, then we can't have a conversation and we can't talk, right? If we can get beyond that, then we can have a conversation. We can have a conversation. We can sit down and say, yo, where are the issues that we both align on? I guarantee you that if you talk to 10 conservatives and 10 liberals, they have more similarities than they do differences. And I guarantee you the top differences are all culture war shit.
Agreed.
I want my gun and you want to take my gun. And I'm doing a country accent. I know I'm
That's good.
You want my gun. You want to take my gun and I want my gun. Okay. What about healthcare? How many people in your family are sick and can't go to a doctor? How many people that would go bankrupt right now? And I'm focusing on healthcare because we're living in a fucking pandemic and healthcare is important. Like, how many people in your family right now? Like, I have a mom right now that I have to help buy eyeglass because she can't afford to buy new glasses.
Right.
I guarantee you, if I share that story with other conservatives, I guarantee you they will anecdotally bring up something that someone can relate to.
I agree.
And that's what I focus on. Don't focus on what the fuck I look like. Focus on that. Focus on that.
So we focus on that and we say, hey, everyone should have healthcare. This is what we're proposing. And they say, well, who's supporting this? And we show them, oh, AOC and that Muslim from Minnesota you've been ragging on ever since.
But see, those are the folks that I've already said you're never going to reach.
Okay.
I've already said those folks you're never going to reach them.
Okay. I just feel like that's a lot. I feel like that's a lot of the base, and maybe you don't feel like it's as much.
And maybe you're right. Maybe, and I'm not arguing with you. I'm trying to be optimistic.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe you're right. Maybe out of the 71 million, maybe the folks that are not racist are 500,000. Right. Maybe some whack.
But there's still something there, is what you're saying.
There's still something there.
Okay.
And I feel like you have to try to bring those people in the fold.
Yeah,
and again, even if you convert. And I know it goes against what I'm saying because I'm not in the business of converting. I reiterate, I'm not in the business of converting somebody who's a racist. Like, if you're a racist and you don't like me, there's no conversation to be had. If you think my kids that look like me should be in cages, then there's no conversation to have. I'm talking about the folks in the middle, the folks that say, I don't like Donald Trump but I voted for him because both parties suck. And what does it matter if I vote for Donald Trump as opposed to this? Those are the folks that you have to talk to.
Yeah. And listen, I think they're out there. Just full disclosure, I'm not saying that the whole Republican Party. I just feel like the culture thing is so huge that even if you get them to agree with the progressive ideas we have, it's still going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible, for them to switch over, period. That's just how I feel personally.
And you may be right, bro.
Yeah,
you may be right.
I hope I'm wrong.
All this...
I just think I'm really pessimistic seeing that 9 million more people consciously voted for this man after 4 years of this. It's in 2016, I might have been talking like you, but 2020, No, especially when I know people who didn't vote for him this time around and or changed their vote. I know a lot of people like that. A lot of my conservative, especially from New Jersey, like where I went to college, a lot of my college quote unquote acquaintances didn't vote for him and they voted for him the first time around. I know people, especially a lot of women that I know, voted Trump 2016, voted Biden 2020. Well, and still 9 million new people just
bro, I have no explanation for it, bro.
Yeah, I know. It's a fascinating conversation. I hope I'm wrong. I just think I might be a little pessimistic because of the results that happened this week.